Hello, this is Tim Law with Playing It Forward Coaching, always encouraging your self-reliance. If you'll develop a marketable skill, chase that skill with a good work ethic, always go the extra mile, and always continue to work on good people skills, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in this country. A big thank you to over 500 people that have subscribed to this channel, Playing It Forward Coaching. If you haven't already, please do so. I would really appreciate it. I got a guy on here, every now and then you go, as you go through life, you find somebody that you have like an instant connection with. And this gentleman right here that I'm about to introduce and get his story is just that type of guy. My brother from another mother, Stefan Greenlee. Welcome, Stefan. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, doing very well. So you and I actually met through wrestling coaching when I was down there in Greensboro about a dozen years ago. We had a very special young man named Randall Diabe, who we both, worked with. Obviously, it was a huge part of his efforts and everything. So tell us about, the kind of work you do, the relationship with wrestling, Randall, etc.
Okay. So the work that I do is I am what is called an AFL provider. So I do what is typically or traditionally like a group home, but I do group homes for adults with special needs. And in an AFL environment, you actually bring the clients into your own home. So it's almost like adult foster care of some sort. So I am responsible for the lives of these adults with special needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's a very challenging job, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's something that I definitely have a passion for and something that I love doing. When it comes to my job, wrestling actually prepared me for it because it's a lot of mental aspects to it and physical. So wrestling prepared me for it. And wrestling also is the reason that I even got into doing what I do. I was actually coaching a high school team, and one of the kids that was on my team was actually in a group home, and he was in a group home for troubled teens. And the owner of that group home expressed to me how much well the student had been doing since he'd been wrestling and asked me what I do, and I was like, well, when he gives me a tough time, I just make him wrestle with me all day, I was like, that's one way to get that energy out. Okay, you don't want to listen, you're just going to practice with coach today, and that's when I was still in my 20s at the time, so I could kind of go then. So afterwards, the owner of the group home was like, I really like what's happening with this kid. Can you come help out at our group home? And I was kind of reluctant because it was nothing that I really wanted to do at the time. But I was like, you know what? When life throws things your way, take an opportunity. I was like, if I help this one kid, maybe I could help another. So I started working at that group home, and I started to learn how group homes work. I was already substitute teaching here and there at the time and working with special needs. So that's what I put the two and two together. I had a passion for special needs. I was understanding the group home business, and then I just combined them together and started my own business after working with that one particular group home for a while.
Oh, super. And I couldn't agree more as far as we both have a pretty good background as far as the great sport of wrestling. And the great Dan Gable, kind of our Michael Jordan of wrestling, says after you've done wrestling, everything else in life is easy compared to that.
That is the truth.
Yeah, definitely. So the life lessons and everything you took from the sport, Stefan, how are you? What are some of the other ways that you're applying them to, the group home position?
Well, the life lessons of wrestling, the first lesson is if you don't quit, you can still win, and if you quit, you automatically lose.
Yep.
With a job like mine, when you're dealing with adults with special needs, it's a new experience every single day. You don't know what you're waking up to. And that's the same thing with a match. You don't know what your opponent's going to do. When you're at a tournament, you've got 4 to 5 opponents, and everybody's coming at you a different way. So one thing that you have to do in wrestling is you have to be prepared for anything. And with my job, I have to be prepared for anything, because when you're dealing with an adult with special needs, you don't know what their mindset is going to be that day. You don't know what you're going to be dealing with. So you have to have your core game plans set up in order to adjust to anything they do. So that's how I apply wrestling to my job. I'm ready for any variable that could come my way. And I don't ever give up on my clients. So I never gave up on the mat either, So I think that's what's made me successful in this business as it did in wrestling as well.
Sure. Yeah. Very, very, very well put, Stefan. Now we both have a mutual young man that, we were just at his wedding a week and a half ago or so. Special guy, Randall Diabe. Tell us about your relationship with Randall, because one of my favorite all-time pictures is after he won the state title there in 2015 in North Carolina States. There's a picture of you kind of picking him up in the air. Very, very cool. That's for sure. Tell us about Randall and your relationship.
Yes. So I met Randall when he was in middle school. I was coaching with the great Coach Crosby over at Dudley High School. Dudley was my alma mater as well as Coach Crosby's. Crosby was the head coach. I was one of his assistants. And Randall was one of the middle schoolers who would come to Dudley after his middle school practices and roll around. Immediately saw promise in him. At the time, Coach Jenkins, who was also a mutual friend of ours and a mentor of mine, was at Lincoln. I think it was Lincoln at the time. They changed. I mean, they changed the name since then. They said Lincoln Kids to Hairston, but at the time it was still Lincoln. And Coach Jenkins had a relationship with Coach Crosby, and Lincoln was basically our feeder system. All of our best wrestlers always came from Coach Jenkins, and it was no different with Randall. So he immediately showed promise early, and he never ever let us down. He was a great kid from the middle school all the way throughout high school. And he still continues to work hard and impress us. He ended up going to Appalachian State, and now he is the assistant coach at Appalachian State. So Randall definitely was one of our crown jewels for our program.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And I've coached a lot of high school, a lot of middle school wrestlers, and I would be hard put to find another seventh grade kid, is when I had Randall, that worked harder than him. I mean, it was very unusual for a middle school kid. A lot of times the kids will get that fever, and then the high school, they're working really hard. But as a seventh grader, right from the beginning, he worked extremely hard.
Yes, he was always blessed with all the perfect physical attributes, and that's always a good start, and then when it comes to wrestling, it's a lot of mental aspects as well that you have to master. And that's actually the hardest part. You can be blessed with all the physical capabilities that God wants to give you, but it's up to you to work on those mental aspects. And Randall definitely put the time in to learn the sport and work on those mental aspects to make himself successful. It wasn't easy for us, wasn't easy for him, but he put in the work. So he deserves every bit of success that he is getting right now.
Sure. And then you telling the story how he would come from a middle school practice over to the Dudley practices. And I attended a number of those with the kids then. And I mean, that was no, Coach Crosby put them through the paces, man. It was no walk in the park. That's for sure. It was definitely challenging.
Yes, it was definitely challenging. We always tried to challenge our kids because typically at Dudley, we dealt with a lot of inner city youth. And just like I was saying, you don't know what variables are going to come at you when you step up against your opponent on the mat. With the kids that we coach, and when I say all, they all had variables in their lives that was going on. So wrestling was kind of like a sanctuary to them to escape all of that. And we never made our practices easy, even if it was middle school or high school, because we wanted to let them know right then, if you can get through this, you can get through anything. And that's what wrestling does for all wrestlers. As you said, Dan Gable said, if you can wrestle, you can do anything. And we believed it, and we taught that from day one. Sure.
And Stefan, as far as some of the life lessons and as far as, some of the kids that you remember the best and everything like that, is what advice, because I always like to, I look at everybody that I interview on here as a really successful role model. What advice would you give to kids that are, let's say, teens, early 20s, that type of thing, based on your life experience?
As far as wrestling or as far as life?
Just life in general. Yeah.
Life in general, I would just say, first of all, have faith. I think if you, and when I say faith, I don't necessarily say you should have one particular faith. Whatever faith it is you have, dedicate yourself to it. Whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it is, faith and discipline go hand in hand. So if you don't have faith or a God that you are praying to, you are lost from the start. I myself am a Christian, and I don't down any other religion. But having the faith in something is the first thing, because if you look at any religion, pretty much they're all following the golden rule, So
Yes.
in order to be a better person, you have to follow some type of discipline that's going to make you focus in on yourself. And once you have mastered yourself, then you can be successful in anything that you try to do. But you definitely have to have that inner faith and that inner discipline, because the world is always changing. The world is always moving. You can't control what goes on in the world, but the only thing you can control is what you do as an individual. So in having that control, you need that guidance from some other form to show you the right path to be walking at all times.
Sure. No, makes total sense. And I couldn't agree more. Stefan, this has been awesome. Do you have any other thoughts or ideas before we conclude? And can you hang for a minute when we get finished here?
Yes, most definitely. I would also tell, and as far as wrestling, listen to your coach. I will say that much. I have been blessed myself. I have never, ever had one bad coach. And I don't know if everybody can say that, but I was coached by the great Larry Reynolds in high school. And then after him, Coach Melvin Fair. Both of those coaches have accolades out of the wazoo. My very first coach was Larry Reynolds. He taught me the first move that carried me all the way through high school and college, which was the double leg, which if you know me, sure. I'm going to do the double leg and I'm going to teach the double leg. So that came from Coach Reynolds. And then after Coach Reynolds was Coach Fair. And then after Coach Fair was my college coach, Bill Lamb. Coach Bill Lamb basically was a great guy, and he followed a lot of the life lessons of wrestling, preparing you for the rest of your life. And he was very instrumental in my life because those were my formative years in college. So, when you're in college, you're learning more about yourself than you did in high school. In high school, you're kind of like following the leader. So he was my coach after that. And then after college, I didn't have a coach, but I had great mentors. And those mentors were Coach Jenkins and Coach Teague and Bobby Schreiner from Orange High School. I can't say enough great things about Bobby Schreiner. He is like a second dad to everybody. He is the one that really let me know, how important faith is when it comes to wrestling. Coach Crosby and I modeled our program at Dudley after what Coach Schreiner was doing at Orange High School. And I think now Coach Schreiner actually works with the UNC program as well. So I tell everybody, get under a good coach and follow their lead if you're a wrestler. I was definitely blessed in every aspect from top to bottom with my coaching and mentoring that I was able to receive.
Sure. And Coach Lamb, I met him years ago at a wrestling clinic. I mean, the guy was a legend, certainly nationally and absolutely on the East Coast here, is coming out of Carolina and everything. He was amazing, that's for sure. So,
yes.
Well, Stefan, this has been great. Can you hang for a minute or two so we can chat afterwards?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.